Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Morton. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the artist and studio manager here at Baltimore Clayworks, and we are thrilled that you all have joined us. I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining from my office located on Piscataway and Susquehannock land, currently known as Baltimore, Maryland. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual artist talk given today by Larry Allen. Larry Allen is an accomplished pottery artist whose works are increasingly sought after by collectors in the Southeast and throughout the country. His stoneware clay vessels are inspired largely by Native American and African art and are authentic, beautiful, and functional. He was introduced to the world of pottery as a student at Berea College in Berea, Kentucky in the late 70s, where he served as an apprentice potter for 3 years and earned a bachelor's degree in art. He taught pottery classes at Jefferson State Community College in Birmingham, Alabama, for 4 years before opening his own studio known as LA Pottery in 2006. After the events of September 11th, 2001, he was stirred by the country's collective unification, seeing blue collar and white collar men and women and even Congress on the front steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., standing for a common cause. He remembers thinking, now they get it. There is strength in unity. He decided to capture that spirit in unity motif of linked hands raised in the air, which he has carved into many of his art pieces to date. Throughout his career of over 40 years, his work has received many accolades, including being showcased on the national televised HGTV show That's Clever in 2008. He is a guild member of the Southern Highlands in Asheville, North Carolina, and Alabama Designer Craftsman in Birmingham, Alabama. He has won numerous awards, including Best in Show at many art shows, and his work is represented in several art galleries across the United States. His work has also been given as a gift to Pulitzer Prize winner and Arthur Harper Lee. He was presented the Distinguished Alumnus Award in November 2018 from Berea College in Berea, Kentucky. In 2019, his work was featured in an article in the winter edition of the Cottage Journal magazine. In 2021, his work was chosen as part of the set design in the movie Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. In 2022, his work was part of an art exhibition of the Northern Clay Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Also in 2022, he was commissioned by the Birmingham Museum of Art to create a vase, which is part of the museum's permanent collection, now on display in the Wedgwood Gallery section of the museum. Larry and his wife, Linda, reside in Leeds, Alabama. They have one daughter, Maisha, who has twins, boy and a girl, and husband who resides in Manassas, Virginia. For more information about our artist talks, please visit our virtual library at baltimoreclayworks.org and tune in tomorrow for an artist talk with Kristen Royer, our current Lorena Salter Fellow from 1:30 to 2. And I will now turn it over to Larry.
As stated, I'm Larry Allen. Been a professional potter now for a while. Enjoying the journey. I think that's a good way to put it. This is one thing that when I first was introduced to pottery, it struck me as such that I realized that I was going to be in it for life. And so I've been working in it for quite a while. So and I'm not bored with it yet. So I'm always interested in kind of tweaking things and trying to push things just a little bit further from time to time. I've traveled, pretty much throughout geographical areas of the United States at art shows. Do enjoy doing art shows. I like meeting people that actually purchase my work. Some artists don't get into that, but I kind of get into that. I kind of enjoy meeting people around the world. So, but working in clay is one of those things that initially I wanted to be a painter. I thought I wanted to be a painter until I saw somebody working in clay for the first time. And it struck me as such a way that it allowed me a certain way to release energy. So I always had an idea in my mind as to what I wanted to do. I wasn't too much interested in just exactly copying things that I saw. So I wanted to be able to you know, come up with some of the, get to a point where I can produce some of the things that I wanted to. Is in working with clay, it takes a certain amount of discipline and it takes a certain amount of skill to get to that point where you can do it. So I tell people when I'm at shows, I said I had ideas, but I didn't have any skills. So it took a while to develop a skill level where I can make my ideas a reality. Uh, when I first got started, I was just doing, haphazard designs. Anything that I thought would look right. Uh, and over time, I started to realize that I needed to do just a little bit more. I need to have a purpose for my design because and the events of 9/11 kind of focused me on things that I wanted to do. Uh, I was making at first, if I had some of those earlier pieces, I would show you, but I don't have pictures of earlier pieces where I was working on vessels and I was doing a lot of carving on the vessels, but they were all dark. And so they didn't really show up as well. And so a lot of times I would get overlooked because a lot of people would pass by if I was at an art show and they were not really paying attention to the detail in the work because the pieces was kind of like, dull. And so they would not really come in to really take a closer look. And then over time, I realized that I needed to do something to pull the designs out. So that's when I started opening up my color palette. So right here, this is a bottle that I'm making right now. I've been doing this for a while. But if you could see this bottle, I used to do this carving, the people right here around the vessel. I used to do that just with the black and gray combination. And so it would get lost in I mean, you couldn't see it from a distance anyway, not unless you came up and looked very closely. And so I started to add the red glaze to it to pull it out because I thought red would be a good complementary color for that dark body. So I used the red glaze and kind of highlighted the people in the middle and other areas on it. The turquoise glaze right in here, I kind of put that in. That's kind of some of the Native American influence with the turquoise, jewelry that they do. So I started adding those colors in on it. And, that was really kind of like the focus of my designs. Over time, I changed that design a little bit. I kind of started changing it up a little bit. And this vessel here, where I used the blue slip over the black clay, and I carved the designs, and my motif changed to these images around the edge here. It got more of a triangular shape, if you want to say that. The shape changed, and also I started adding columns to it. And the columns I added was a part of the influence that I got from Gothic architecture. So I started adding those features because I really like the architectural arches and stuff like that. So I started adding that feature, and the natural flow out of it was the coin pattern, which I started utilizing around the vessel. So I put this coin pattern in it kind of worked with the theme which I'm working with. Everybody know the corn is the American crop. Unity is one of those. Is united we stand. It's on the dollar bill and all that stuff. But that was the core message that I wanted to kind of get across in my work. The top, I always use this. It's like the top of a lamp or something like that. And I use that instead of a normal knob. I put that different touch on top of it to to create a different look. And also in my thinking, because we come up with philosophies when we're working with clay, over time we come up with our philosophy as to how we see things and how we want other people to see it. And in my perception of it, I was, especially the knob on top, I didn't want a traditional knob on top. I want something that I could kind of like button off. So there were two themes that I always keep in mind when I'm working on the wheel, when I'm creating something. And one of them is evolution, and the other is unity. And so I'm always looking at the idea that things evolve over time. So when I put that knob on top, it was the idea, and I buttoned it off like that. I flared it out and then I buttoned it off, and I buttoned it off to indicate that, yeah, if I wanted to, I could take that button off and it can change and turn it into something a little bit differently. And so that's the whole idea around it. I used to do bows, but I used to do these cut rim vessels, and those cut rim vessels were vessels that were sliced and wrapped around the vessel, and that was a lot of people call them lotus bow, but the object was that I wanted to take this hard element and make it look like it was a live element, that it was unfolding. It was kind of unfolding into something, a little bit different. This piece, can you see that piece?
Yes.
This is one of the cutout bows that I do. I'm doing this cutout bow, and I'm using the same thing throughout. That bowl is thrown, and then I do all my carving on it. And after I finish my carving, the last thing I do is cut it out. So I cut this bowl out so that you can see through it. So anytime I cut out a pattern right now, it's always in that same theme of that same design that I'm thinking of, is the unity design. So I started cutting those vessels out. I try to keep my designs, I try to keep my design consistent, and I try to keep my design, in that same theme, because that was a message. I felt that message really strong after that 9/11 incident, and I decided that would be my direction that I would go in, and I was going to try to emulate that, and pretty much most vessels that I make, that I create. So, but anyway, this piece here, let's show this piece. This piece here, years ago, I was featured at the Southern Highlands Guild that year, and they used this particular vessel as the poster art. So they used it on the poster, and they also had it on. They called me up, and they said, "Larry, we want you to know that your work is on the billboards up here in North Carolina." So they called me up to let me know that before I got to town and saw it myself. Because if I'd seen it on the billboard, I'd been, stopping on my break, to take a closer look at it. So they let me know that it was on the billboards, and somebody called me up and said, "Well, it looked like the moon rising. You should have seen it on the billboard. You would see exactly what I'm talking about, the way it looked on that billboard." Uh, that was what that piece. I use a lot of slips as a base for my designs. So this one is with the white slip, and I'm using the black clay, and I'm covering it entirely with that white slip. And then I go in and I, carve my designs into it, and then add, once bitch fired, I add glazes where I want it to highlight certain areas. Uh, I got into slip decoration because I was always looking for, if you do glazing, you know that glazing is always affected by how thick or thin it is, and also the way you fire it. But I found, when I realized that slip is always consistent, and you can get away with it under glazes and stuff like that. They always a consistent color, and that's basically what I was looking for, a consistent color. So that's why I started with the slip, because that's what I wanted. I wanted a consistent color, so I used the slip basically, and then I carved my design, and I highlight the areas that I want with glazes. Now here's some pieces that same with the green slip. I'm using the green slip, and then I'm carving my designs back into that, and then highlighting again with the glaze, highlighting the areas that I want to. I choose forms. Uh, Forms are one of those things I choose because there are certain forms that are going to challenge you no matter how many times you throw them. Some things you just can't rest on. And if you've been throwing for a while, if you've been throwing for a while, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There are some things you can get away with. You can throw it pretty simple and pretty easily. And then there are other things that you throw it one time, that don't mean it's going to be that easy again the second time around. So a lot of times you have to go in, and I choose forms really that make me work for them, because I've been throwing for such a long time. I don't want to get lazy with my throwing, because that could easily happen. You can get comfortable throwing just certain shapes and stuff like that, that you get to a point where it's like automatic. You're on automatic. And so what I like to do, I like to choose shapes that no matter how many times I've thrown them, I still have to pay a lot of attention to it the next time around, because it's not like it's automatic. I still have to really work to make sure that shape come in, because shapes are important to me, because I'm not into just squirting things out, because as potters you could easily do that. You can just squirt stuff out, but I'm really interested in homing in on shapes and making those shapes, making the design in my mind fit the shape that I'm throwing. That's important to me. So, but anyway, that's basically my philosophy on working with vessels. And it's one of those things, everybody have to find their own, thing to get them going. I found what gets me going. I found what make me excited about doing my work, and I'm good with that. It's like you, as a potter in particular, you always get people asking you, well, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? And my answer is simple, because I don't want to do this or that. I really want to do what I want to do. And when I'm doing what I want to do, I am satisfied, and that's what keeps me going. It's not because somebody told me to do something, because a lot of times when I get asked to do something, I shut down. It's like my innards shut down, and I don't really want to do it. And I understand what a writer's block is, because I had a potter's block. It's not that I can't do it; it's just I don't want to do it. So it's just I really enjoy doing what I want to do. Somebody asked me what is a good day for me. I told them a good day is when I step in the studio, and when I decided to make something, it's because I decided at that moment what I wanted to make, and not because I was compelled to actually do it. On those days when I just got to get things out, it's a rough day. It's a rough day because it takes me a while to sink into it, to get my mind wrapped around it. Because the artist in me, I always wanted to make a statement. I want to make a statement. The craft side of me, I want to execute it well. I want to make sure that everything is done well. But the art side of me, I always want to make some kind of statement. And no matter what it is I'm making, I can't just make a simplified thing and be happy with it. I have to do me. So I'm sure these teapots, for instance, I have to do teapots the way I do teapots. And so I enjoy making teapots the way I see them, and I see so many varied ways of people making teapots. And because they have to make things that fit their mindset, the way they see things. And me, for instance, I see it certain way, and so if I make a teapot this way, that means that's because I like making teapots that way. So it's and when it comes down to practicality, I tell people I'm going to choose aesthetic over practical every time. Every time I'm going to choose aesthetic over practical, because there are some things you can make a lot more practical, but they don't look good. And so in my case, I'm always looking at the fact of making it look good. It is practical too. So I think about those things when I'm doing it. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm trying to think of anything else I can think of that I might need to share. Uh, at the moment, I don't, but I can easily take questions.